Doing business has always been profitable, because business brings in very good money, in the form of income, on which you can really live, not just exist. But is it worth taking a loan to open a business, considering all the risks that a loan carries? Here, friends, everything depends on how well you can manage these risks, because there is risk in any business, there is always risk, but we have learned to manage some of these risks very well and therefore do not notice them at all. The same is true for a loan, which will never be a risky financial instrument in the hands of a competent and prudent person who knows how to properly and effectively manage money. Simply put, in the hands of a financially educated person, a loan is as useful a tool as, for example, an axe for a woodcutter or a fishing rod for a fisherman. Each person, with the help of something, with the help of some resource, tool, earns money for a living, and a loan is no worse and no better than any of the resources and tools that help to earn money. It just does not suit everyone. And when we talk about business as a very difficult matter that requires certain qualities from a person, then for this business itself a person must also, as they say, grow up before starting to do it. Otherwise, you can go broke even without any loan, if you incorrectly plan all your activities and do not take into account all the pitfalls in this or that business. Most beginning advanced businessmen, although they have quite good knowledge on the issue of creating and developing a business, nevertheless, they do not have the necessary experience for this business, and experience is the most valuable thing in any business. Therefore, many of them, blindly believing in their success, stumble at the first obstacle that they encounter at the initial stage of creating a business, and as a result, go bankrupt. But there are examples, and there are many of them, of successful business creation, at the expense of borrowed money, when the business was not only able to recoup its costs, but also actively develops, making its owners very wealthy people. It is for such examples that one should show interest in a loan, because one must at some point decide and reach a higher standard of living, in which a piece of bread you earned can be spread with a thick layer of butter and put caviar on top. It just so happens in our world that working for hire, with rare exceptions, is the most primitive and far from the most profitable way to get money. It is clear that work can be different, and in some cases people working for hire have a much higher salary than, say, the income of some businessmen, which forces them to be completely satisfied with their position. But business is not only money, business is also a more comfortable psychological state in which you feel like a truly adult, maybe not completely independent, but an adult. Hired workers, in my observations, at least, more often suffer from an inferiority complex than businessmen. And even some officials, being no more and no less, but just appointees who can be removed as quickly as they are installed, often show excessive aggression towards businessmen, because they envy their success. Well, and at the same time, they are not averse to using their official position to take away people's businesses, for purely practical reasons, but fortunately, this is not widespread. Do you understand, friends, how hard it is for a person to feel dependent on someone else's will? Money is money, but a person also has pride, which, although we like to trample into the dirt, it is very difficult to kill. Yes, it is better to take a loan to open a small business and try to create at least something insignificant, but your own, than to serve the master. However, if you do not have a freedom-loving nature, then you may have a different opinion on this matter. By the way, if you do not have this very love for freedom, you may not even dare to create your own business, with or without a loan. I would recommend to everyone who is thinking about starting a full-fledged business of their own and wants to take out a loan for this, to start with something simpler, with something that in case of your bankruptcy will not put you in a very difficult situation. After all, a business can be simple, and therefore not require too much money to start. Therefore, firstly, you can easily get a loan to start a business in most banks, because seeing that there is not a very big risk in your small business, they will meet you halfway, and secondly, you yourself will risk little. Well, let's say that you go bankrupt. Well, you will have to work for someone for some time to pay back the bank's loan, but what experience you will gain. After all, you will already know what you should not do, what is the mistake of a beginner in this or that type of activity, what other options exist that allow you to avoid these mistakes, and so on. In other words, even if you go bankrupt, your efforts will not be in vain, just as the money you took out on credit to start a business will not be thrown to the wind. You just don't need to immediately grab onto complex things, big and serious matters, in which your competitors have eaten not one, but 10 dogs, and therefore can easily crush you like a bug. Of course, if you really understand the business you are going to start, as, for example, it was with me when, creating one of my businesses, I didn't give a damn about all the competitors I had at that time, because I was reasonably confident in my abilities, then you can take off at full speed. But if this is not the case, if the business you are starting is not very well known to you, if you are just trying to create something of your own and do not really know whether this business will work for you or not, then perhaps it is better not to set the bar too high and not to take risks. After all, a small step is also a step, it is already moving forward. It is not difficult to start a business, I believe. If the business itself is not big, it is difficult to keep it afloat and develop it if you do not understand all the intricacies of the type of business you have decided to do. The problem is not in loans, the problem is in a person's competence, because if a person does not understand something, if he does not understand something, his business will simply not work out and he will not be able to repay the loan. However, there are such schemes, using which, loans cannot be repaid, but I will not describe them here, at least for now, because I believe that you need to approach the matter seriously, and not the way all sorts of scammers do, who are very often punished for their shady game. A good business is an asset that you can count on for many years. I will not say that the country I live in is ideal for starting a business, because this is far from true. Actually, this is exactly why it has constant problems with the economy. But still, it certainly can't be called the worst option, and if you look at the number of businessmen who were able to create their own business, and no one took anything away from them, no one strangled them with taxes, or put them in prison, then it becomes obvious you can do business in this country. And if you can, then you should, because we will always have time to work for someone else. Work, as they say, is not a wolf, it will not run away into the forest. But you should not delay with business, because just think about how much money you are losing, simply not earning it. You are educated people, well-read, literate, able to do complex work, and you cannot create a business. Well, what good is this? Why the hell did you study at school then? And some of you even graduated from higher education institutions, to sit and doubt your own abilities. Look at those people from the South who come to our country, who sometimes can't even string 2 words together in Russian, but they have a business, even if it's often a very primitive business, but still a business that brings in good money. They can do it, but you can't? Is this normal, for educated people? Maybe you should learn this business from them, the newcomers? What doubts can there be about a business loan if you simply need to carefully study the business itself, make a good business plan and thoroughly assess all possible risks? The loan itself is not a problem, I repeat this to you once again, the problem is in your lack of understanding of what you are going to do. Well, think for yourself, if you know for sure, or at least more or less accurately know that the income from your business will many times exceed your loan payments, then why would you refuse this money? It is impossible to be 100% sure of something, I understand that. Well, and a good business plan, can you develop it so that you understand where your money will go and what return is expected from your business? If you think everything through carefully and consistently implement your plan, the risks when creating a business will be minimal. For example, At one time in my city it was incredibly profitable to trade in clothes and various Western toys brought for resale from Moscow, via Moscow from China and Turkey, on which people were ready to spend their last money. You understand, the Americanization of our people was very fun. What is worth only the opening of the first McDonald's in Moscow? That was fun, to watch all these uncles and aunts standing in a giant line for shit. Yeah, just like in the cartoon Business in Russian, where in one of the episodes people really were sold shit. But then this gimmick partially outlived itself. People carried cool American gins from China and Turkey, chewed gum, sucked on lollipops, watched Rambo and Terminators on VCR, and already wanted something else, something new, the same iPhones, smartphones, Lexuses, and the like. Making money on the resale of all these things is a piece of cake. You don't need any brains here at all, you understand, at all. The most primitive buy-sell scheme, but how much money it allows you to earn. I have a neighbor, a village of a village, and she was engaged in the resale of clothes, and I must say, she did it quite successfully. So why, I ask, not take a loan for such a business? What are the risks? They exist, but they are insignificant. As for our time, today you can do anything, for example, advertising. It is a very profitable type of business. For example, on the same internet, advertising is becoming more and more popular and, as a result, in demand, and you can offer something of your own to people, some intermediary services or services for promoting websites, brands, and so on. It is also very profitable to trade junk today, that is, those cheap Chinese goods that are sold in every store at a very cheap price. Well, you know, a hat for Santa Claus, or for Santa Claus, to each his own, you will probably agree, is not the most important thing for a person, but he is ready to buy it cheap, so you can import and sell such goods. As I already said, the buy-sell scheme, in most cases, does not require any special knowledge from a person at all, so anyone can master it. Although it doesn't take much brains to pump oil, it's not like building spaceships and creating electronics, but it's hard to even imagine the amount of money that's involved in this business. As for the procedure for taking out a loan, getting a loan to open a business these days is not a problem in principle. The only question is the business itself, its feasibility and profitability. But in any case, I support the creation of a business, even just an attempt by a person to create one, because I know that this is the right decision that moves a person forward. Even if not everything is smooth in our country, even if there are constant problems in the global economy, even if you were not taught to create a business, but were taught to report to your boss with excellent marks, all this is not a reason to refuse serious matters, to refuse the struggle for a better life. So take a loan and don't doubt the usefulness of this decision. If there's one thing you should take it for, it's for business. Better give up all these idiotic toys that TV with its annoying commercials hammers into you, but take a risk with creating a business. It's worth it. This is a chance, you see, a chance for a person to get out of the ass in which he sits, serving his boss. Well, people used to toil in factories and plants, since we had a planned industrial economy then, and today many workers sit in their offices, with a market raw materials economy. What's the difference? If you work for another person, then it doesn't matter how clean your work is and how starched your collar is, it was, is, and will remain just a job, in which you are just a battery, a replaceable module. And business is like a child, it is yours. It will be your brainchild. Following other people's instructions does not require much intelligence, while business will require you to demonstrate all your best and strongest qualities, without which it simply will not work for you. Find the strength in yourself and create a good, or rather, an ideal business plan, which will be extremely precise, detailed, with a jewelry cut, so to speak, when all the risks are thought out and properly assessed in the smallest details and all the options are calculated. If you have never done business before, then do not take on a big business right away. Start with something simpler, to get the essence of business. And do not spend too much money on creating a business, so as not to end up to your ears in debt in the event of a possible failure. So don't think about whether to take a loan to start a business or not. Think about your capabilities, your strength, yourself, which needs self-realization. Don't remain a gray spot in the history of mankind. Don't be an ordinary conveyor product with a limited shelf life. Cast aside all your doubts about your own strengths and act decisively, create your own business.